From a villainous hideout on the moon to the community center in Angel Grove, all the way to the mysterious command center, you're listening to Mighty Morphin Podcast Rangers, where we cover everything from TV to movies and comics.
Welcome to another episode of Mighty Morphin Podcast Rangers. As always, I'm your host, Adam. And with me is my co-host, Nick. Nick, how's it going?
Doing great, Adam. Happy to be here. The holiday craziness is just about over, and it's time to get back to doing what we love, which is some nerdy stuff.
By the time the listeners actually and viewers watch and hear this, it will be 2024. So I feel like we're kind of, I don't know, we're filming this in the past, but it's coming to you in the future. It's very weird. None of us are Doc Brown, so let's forego the time drop.
2024.
Right. It's insane. It's insane that year is on the calendar. And I remember when it was 1994, and I think Tommy Oliver was the White Ranger at that point. But we're not there yet in terms of our rewatch. So
the candle hasn't burned at both ends yet, Adam.
Well, that's a very good segue into what we're talking about today. I'd like to say that we have an abundance of Power Rangers news. That would be a big fat lie. We don't. What I will say, because I've seen some chatter online, it's been revealed relatively, not too long ago that Jonathan Entwistle is directing the new Karate Kid movie that will star Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. And a lot of the fandom of Power Rangers is concerned because, oh my God, Jonathan Entwistle is directing a movie. What does that mean for Power Rangers? Well, Jonathan Entwistle hasn't told me this, but let me just break it down. It means nothing for Power Rangers. I'll tell you why. Because the intention was always for Jonathan Entwistle to do the Karate Kid before Power Rangers. So if you're worried, don't be. This was part of the plan. Mm-hmm. We know things are still happening because Jonathan Entwistle has hinted and told us as much via his Instagram posts and stuff. So we know things are happening. Let's just, they're building a new universe. That takes time. And Nick and I, as DC fans, know that takes time. So it makes this way a little bit easier because we're already going through it with the DCU from James Gunn. So it's like, that's what I can caution to Power Rangers fans. Relax. He can direct Power Rangers and help coordinate the new Power Rangers universe and develop it at the same time. Like, directors and writers wear multiple hats and work on multiple things in various stages and multiple times. So just chill. Let the Power Rangers in live action have a little bit of a break, which is what we're going through right now. But I'd venture to say that at probably in the second or third quarter of 2024, we'll start getting some news and rumblings about the Power Ranger reboot. But for now, don't let the Karate Kid filming be a concern. If anything, it might provide him with casting options for potential Power Rangers. That's the most it can affect the Power Rangers universe. So, Nick, any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on the concern that people have?
Yeah, I don't think there should be any major concern. Obviously, I know there's a lot of frustration with Hasbro that they haven't really done much of close to anything with Power Rangers, but that's a whole separate thing. I mean, look, Netflix is known to be developing multiple IPs at a time. I think what they're hoping for is, I think the hope is that when Stranger Things ends, something like a Power Rangers can kind of fill that void. So I think they're maybe just waiting for something like a Stranger Things to kind of end its tenure, and then that's when Power Rangers can slide right in there. And look, creators have been known to work on multiple things at a time, right? So he's doing both, and maybe, like we kind of said on our last episode, that the Karate Kid movie is just further along in development because it's probably less expensive. It's less visual.
Takes less to shoot.
Less time to make.
Yeah.
So it could just be that, and like I said, I think we should just give it time. I know it's frustrating because it feels like we've known about this forever, but all good things come to those who wait in the end.
Right. and it doesn't make sense to come off the heels of the anniversary and then the final season of Cosmic Fury, and then immediately, hey, here's your reboot. Forget about everything we just gave you, and here's your reboot. Have fun. So I think a little bit of space in between could actually help, because what I think it'll do is it'll make people want Power Rangers again.
Yeah.
And there's still great comics available to us coming out that Nick and I will start covering as we wait for news about the reboot. We're going to go into the Boom Studios comics. Not today, but we will in the next episode. So there's a lot. They just announced a sequel to the Power Rangers Godzilla comics crossover. So that means we'll have to review the first volume, Nick, at some point here. So so there's great comics to tide you over in the meantime as you're waiting, which is a good thing. So just let's have a little patience and wait for, as Nick eloquently put it, good things come to those who wait. So let's employ that mantra as we indeed look forward to news on the reboot. With that being said, that's all the non-news that there is. So we can jump right into our regularly scheduled program for this week, which is, as most people who watch and listen to this show know, Nick and I are very big fans of the Tommy Oliver character, played by Jason David Frank. So what we have decided to do is go through some of the key episodes of his tenure throughout the Power Rangers franchise. And the last we left off, where we did, Tommy-centric episode, was Green with Evil. And then now I think the next big sort of episodes for him was the Green Candle two-parter. So with that being said, Nick, give us a rundown of what happens in the Green Candle, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so this episode is pretty much Rita Repulsa has this idea that because she thinks she still has control over the green powers, technically what she does, she creates this green candle that Tommy apparently touched when he was under her spell, and it's the wax of the candle that once it burns out, Tommy completely loses his Green Ranger powers, and there's a race against time to sort of get that green candle before all the wax sort of burns off. And then it's kind of this cool thing of like there's two different Ranger teams going on at the same time, and you kind of get Tommy's quote unquote last mission, so to speak. So yeah, this was a pretty good one.
What I liked about it was that it really sort of, because a lot of the Power Rangers episodes were like, Monster of the Week, one and done, this and that. And it was just like, if you were a kid watching, you could just like drop in on an episode, watch one, and just become familiar with the status quo right away, right? But with the Green Candle being a two-parter, there was a little bit longer story at play, but it also relied on continuity from earlier episodes in the show. So it felt more like a sort of a typical network, evening series, as opposed to feeling like a live action Saturday morning cartoon, in the sense that, it's this compact beginning, middle, and end kind of story. So, and I liked the reliance on the continuity of, her having him under his spell before, and him having touched the candle before at some point, even though we probably saw it off screen, or we didn't see it because it was off screen. And so I liked that reliance on the continuity. Also, the idea that there, Tommy could not go retrieve the candle himself, because his presence close to the candle would only make it burn faster. So it relied on another Ranger, another teammate going in for him. So that's a little bit of a reversal, where when Tommy came in, once he turned on the side of the Rangers, like to be a teammate, he was often the one when the five of them were in trouble. Zordon would call him in and he'd make the big save and come to the rescue. Now he's required to be in that other position where one of them or them as a group have to rescue him. So it's a nice role reversal a bit. I like that aspect of it. And the fact that it was Jason having to go in made sense because of the last time Jason was in Rita Repulsa's dimension and had to face off against Goldar, so it was like a callback to that or a revisiting of that. So just the reliance on the continuity and the callbacks and the, requiring you to have to, hey, remember this, right? So it makes these Power Rangers episodes, they don't feel like just, throwaway adventures of the week. Like there's more substance there. So I really appreciated that aspect of it. Also, I liked the sort of diversion villain that Rita used, the one that could morph into like another version of the Dragon Zord or a copy of the Megazord, because then you got Dragon Zord versus Dragon Zord or Dragon Zord versus Megazord, and those battles are always pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I like the I thought that was a really cool villain because it makes it harder it gives Rita kind of at least temporarily, an even playing field until that villain takes too much damage and then reverts back to its original form. But for a bit, it's like, they're even. And that's usually not the case because once she typically makes the monster grow, the Rangers call on the Megazord and it's pretty much over, right? So, again, there was just, this felt different than everything else up to this point. It felt special, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the stakes were higher. I think is where like in your random, like you so eloquently said, is in a random episode of Power Rangers, usually like it's kind of one and done. The Rangers are gonna win by the end of the episode. Rita has this ridiculous monster, they're gonna stop it, yada yada yada. Whereas this one, it's like one of their members on the team is potentially gonna no longer have, his power. So it's we gotta protect her friend, we gotta protect the city, and then it's like, we gotta preserve, our team as a whole. So I think it's like it's just that the stakes I think felt a little different,
And I did have a lot of fun with the, before the series, again, because it's Power Rangers, how serious did it get back in the day? But, before we got to this, we talked about some of the serious stuff, but I did like the comedic bits at the beginning with, Zach bugging Tommy about, just ask Kimberly out, and he's all nervous. And then Zach's like, here, and he's like, what? Or Tommy goes, if you're so good at it and so confident, why don't you show me how it's done? And he's trying to, I guess it was Angela that he was trying to, impress. And he's doing his dance moves in the middle of the juice bar. And she's having none of it. Like, she's just like, leave me alone, basically, the look she get. And it's like, it's the most epic fail in a public setting you could possibly see. And
he felt so confident.
It's hilarious. Like, it's like, he was so confident. And yet, he failed so miserably. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. It was also cool to just see Zach and Tommy actually just have a moment together, too. I know the parents, weren't all like, but I think that was pretty cool, too, to show that friendship there as well.
Yeah, because usually when we see Tommy paired with people, it's either Kimberly or Jason and they're sparring, right? So
right.
So it was nice to see him and Zach get some time to share the screen. And one thing that I thought was an important detail was there was a moment when the Rangers were off trying to, set up the pillars to open the portal to get to Rita, or to get to Rita's dimension, where Tommy was called into action, right? Because the shapeshifter had taken the form of the Dragon Zord. So he had to use the real Dragon Zord to stop it. And because the candle was already burning at this point, I like that when he called for the actual Dragon Zord, like it wasn't instantaneous. Like there was, even the Dragon Zord was not functioning normally. So like that little detail showing, hey, this candle is screwing things up for Tommy. Not just that he's going to lose his powers, but that even the Dragon Zord is malfunctioning. Like I like that little attention to detail. I thought it was very important.
Mm-hmm.
The other interesting thing that I don't think we've seen up until this point in the series, with the exception of Green with Evil, the first few parts, the Rangers, at least in the mission to gain control of the Green Candle and save Tommy's powers, the Rangers actually fail. They don't succeed. They don't win, and that's a rarity for this show. So, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when all is said and done, it's there's two different missions going on at hand, right? Like you got to stop the monster that's destroying the city, and then you got to try to find a way to get to the Green Candle before all the wax kind of burns out.
Yeah.
I think it ultimately it adds a little more, I guess, dimension to these people that they are teenagers at the end of the day. They have to try to think in a logical way on how to get through a mission, and how to successfully do one. I think it was really even more so interesting that it later sets up a storyline with why Jason was so important to the team and why it ultimately had to be the Red Ranger that took the lead here.
Right.
And not just because he went there before, but because he's the leader and that it makes sense for him.
He was the leader for a point in time.
For a point in time, to go in there. So I thought that was really the more interesting part. And then when you find out that Jason fails, that hits you.
Yeah.
Because then it's like then Tommy gets one last hurrah to try to be there with his friends and try to save the day. And then when they do, they immediately come back to the command center, and it's like all of a sudden Tommy's glowing a little bit greener, and you're like, oh shoot, I think this is the end. And then it kind of gets you, and then it hits you. It like really hits you.
I think watching this, well, first of all, I like that to prevent Rita from getting the powers, he has to choose a ranger to give his power coin to, and he does give it to Jason, which I think is important because, again, often forgotten because of the popularity of Tommy and Jason David Frank, is that Jason, the character, and Austin St. John was the leader of this team.
Right.
So I think it showcases his important. And man, do they make that shield seem like the most, the Green Ranger shield.
It was like,
They make it seem like it's the most important thing in the world. Like,
oh my God.
It transmits onto Jason, and he's having some euphoric, almost quasi orgasmic moment when it comes out. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I didn't notice this as a kid, but I don't know what's going on here. Like, it was hilarious.
It actually looked pretty cool on it too.
It does look cool on the Red Ranger for sure.
Yeah.
But
action figure.
Yeah, well, and believe me, they sold a lot of those. I'll tell you. And Hasbro's trying to recreate that with a newer figure version of it. But watching this episode now, and then with Jason David Frank no longer being with us, and having him say, I'm done, it's over, and saying goodbye, that hit. Even though I know that maybe 15 episodes down the road, I think he comes back, or 5 or 10 episodes, whatever it is, and we'll cover it here when he makes his return as the Green Ranger temporarily. Even though I knew he comes back in the context of the story, me knowing what I know and what happened with Jason David Frank, him saying goodbye hit harder rewatching this now.
Yeah.
It really felt different on this rewatch. But I liked the part about the idea that as cool as the powers are and as cool as the action is, Tommy's main concern was wanting to maintain his friendships with this group, and so that promise that would always stay intact. And then the end of the episode, finishes off the arc of him asking Kim to the dance.
Yeah, your favorite scene of the whole episode.
Well, no, it was my least favorite scene because when there was he asks her, and there's the part where she just to mess with him and see, and she turns around like she's gonna say no.
I can't do this to Adam.
And I'm like, say no, even though I know she doesn't say no. I'm like, say no, and then when she says yes, and they share that memorable. Yeah, I think was that their first kiss. I think was that the first kiss.
It was.
I don't know if you know who. Do you remember who the wrestler Dolph Ziggler was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So there was this whole storyline where he wasn't getting the title shot, and he felt slighted, and so he'd do interviews and he'd scream, "It should have been me!" Every time he'd do an interview. That was me when the kiss was happening. I was like, "It should have been me! It should have been me!" And even though I didn't know, that Dolph Ziggler thing hadn't happened when I was 9 originally watching the show, I can venture to say my 9-year-old self was also saying it should have been me at the screen way back when. But look, of course she was going to say yes at this point. I mean, I don't even know why he was so worried at this. Like, really?
Although, I will say it probably was the most relatable thing, for a 90s kid to say. Because I mean, I'd be honest, I'd be kind of nervous to ask Kimberly.
No, I get why he was nervous, but did he Did he actually believe that she was going to say no? Like,
I mean, let me think about it.
She fell in love with him the first second she saw him, much to my chagrin. But I digress. It is what it is, right? So, there was no. I'm like, there's no way she says no, even though even I knew that as a 9-year-old kid. So, but
I'm sure you were clicking that pen just as much as you ever were before as well.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime Kimberly comes on the screen, the pen gets a click. And here, I'll do it on everyone just right now. Just because, hey, listen, off topic, but me and Chris Evans were doing a Blade Trinity review the other day, which our listeners and viewers will hear eventually. But he talked about when we talked about Jessica Biel, and I told him when those scenes came up, my pen was clicking, and he said, "Yeah, I heard it all the way in Texas." So, it is the pen is.
I can hear it all the way from Chicago too.
I don't know if it's mightier than the sword, but it's louder than the sword.
I think it might be louder than the flute at this point.
It's louder than the dragon dagger. There you go.
Dragon dagger.
So it is what it is. But overall, I really like it so far. Whenever we have Tommy centric, episodes, they're game changers. They've we've now talked about 5 because we just did 2 episodes because they're 2 episodes, but they're one big story, so that's how we covered it. But they've always noticed the Tommy episodes have always been game changers so far and that's only going to continue as we go along. But it just shows you the impact that this character and this actor has had on this franchise right from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think even to your credit too is that it's the importance of this character really can't be stressed far enough. Because I mean, it was really the character. It was the absence of the character that fans demanded to have him continue to be brought back. To have him still be a part of the
Yeah,
show.
apparently kids weren't
You know?
eating back when he left the show. Like after this,
Yeah.
like kids stopped eating, and it's like we got to bring him back for the sake of the kids.
Right. In what, a span of not even 30 episodes, and then or at least 15, I think, by that point, as like the Green Ranger itself, 15, 20 episodes. So that just speaks to how important he was. Yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't away long.
Because he appeared mid-season, and then this was like another mid-season thing too.
Yeah, and then they take him away again, but then they ultimately bring him back, and then he's there for the rest of basically for every iteration of the franchise, up until the very end of his his days, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very important to the the property, the franchise, and I think that the fans and the owner of the brand, whoever they were at various points, all out to Jason David Frank and the character. So, but anything else you want to mention about these two episodes before we give them a rating?
I thoroughly enjoyed them. Again, I like that we were kind of planting the seeds, that we might have thought this might not have been the end of Tommy altogether. You had to think that they were going to try to bring him back in some capacity. But again, I love the shape-shifting monster too. Whenever it's something a little more unique and a little more creative, I kind of always like that a little bit more. I love the high stakes as well. And I love always seeing Tommy get the spotlight. I know it takes a little bit away from the other teammates, but there's a reason why you always go with your main gun. Nonetheless, so I think this was a thoroughly enjoying episode, like you said too. It does hit a little bit differently now, given the real life circumstances, and more of a metaphoric meaning of what that green candle represents. But I thoroughly enjoyed going back to this one.
Yeah, so if you had to give it a grade, a letter grade, what would you?
I'd give these guys I'd give it like a solid A.
Awesome.
Just because, I know where this leads to, but this hit all the beats for me.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. A fantastic episode. It just seems like certain episodes are, I call them mythological episodes. That change the ones that change the course of the franchise. That leave an impact. These two were examples of that. I think in the context of what Power Rangers is, I think the actors elevated their game, for this episode. Even, in the emotional bits between Kimberly and Tommy, you could feel it, you could see it. So, it's an A for me as well. Really good episodes, and back in '93, you didn't know that he was coming back. So, as a farewell, I think that would have worked. It would have worked because he got to go out in heroic fashion with one last mission. So I think it worked on that level as well. So an A for me as well. But that pretty much wraps up this episode. The next time we come back, I can't remember what the episode's called. I think it's A Return of an Old Friend.
I think so.
Is the episode where he comes back. So we'll do that, and we will be delving into more of the comic books. Maybe I think at that point it'll be time to do that first volume of Power Rangers versus Godzilla, and we'll go with that since it's getting a sequel in short order. So that'll be our next Power Rangers episode. But until then, if you want to talk about Power Rangers with either Nick or myself, you can on social media. Nick, give them the rundown of where you can find them.
Thank you, sir. I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at Nick Zennick, and you guys can also hear me on the Vigilante 1939 podcast. Thank you, sir. May the power protect you all.
Indeed. And for me, if you want to track me down on socials, it's at Adam_Leesfan on Twitter. We have the Facebook group, which I will post a link in the description below. Click that. I will add you. We can continue the conversation there. But the Power Rangers and the Green Ranger are forever. From the first time he kisses Kimberly to the last. So long, everybody.